Hi, as the moderator of the Luncheon Chat with Superintendent Brewer, I would like to welcome you. My name is Jennifer Spurline. This meeting is being presented remotely via Zoom for the public. If you wish to share comments or ask questions, please use the Q&A button located at the bottom of the Zoom conference window. Submit your name and wait to be called on. When it is your turn to speak, your name will be called and your mic will be enabled. Thank you. Superintendent Brewer?
Hello, all. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. We are looking at a 12 to 1 time frame for the next several weeks. We'll have a number of opportunities to provide very detailed information in the coming weeks. I'll have guests come out with me, like for instance, Dwayne Johnson, the athletic director, teaching and learning director. So we'll have very specialized opportunities in the future moving forward around this luncheon. So I really appreciate this opportunity to share a little bit about our plan. I'm going to go through that in a fairly quick fashion today so that we can leave ample time for Q&A near the end of this session. So today my top priority is to help everyone in the room have a broader understanding of our plan and how it works and how decisions are made. So we have this status dial, and if you visit our web page, and I do encourage you to do so, this is the front of our web page. This is a hot link that will take you to a number of resources. When you click on that, you will see where we fall in current status, and you can see the arrows pointing to Distance Learning 2.0. So it's a quick, easy option for anyone or any community member to see exactly where we are in this reopening plan that we have approved by our school board. But then below that, we have a number of resources, and some of these I want to caution are still in development, so they may not all be completely full of content just yet. But there's a number of resources down here that I really encourage the community to take a look at and become accustomed to, and it will provide as a guide or a resource in the near future. So with that being said, I'm going to go to the reopening status here and just briefly outline our stages. We really have 3 stages moving forward. And if you think of it in terms of a dial, with our plan, we are going to be capable of dialing up and dialing back services based on the data that's driven through the Department of Health and more specifically, Clallam County. And so you can see that stage 1 is 100% online, and that's where we will start the school year based on the recent rise in cases in Clallam County. Just a quick summary of that phase is, most all students will attend class via online platform. There will be limited learning for students that have high needs and cannot benefit from a distance learning model. And we're really talking about special ed students and resource route 2 students that really have significant disabilities that does not allow them to engage in the interactive process through a distance learning model. Then you look at stage 2. And we have 4 steps in stage 2. And the more we plan this summer and really work towards a plan that would work for our school district and our community, we found that with all the new expectations to keep students and staff safe in our reopening plan, we really needed to have a staggered approach to do so in a very thoughtful way that would most certainly be capable of maintaining student and staff safety protocols and keep all involved safe. So stage 2.1, which is the hybrid step 1, will really focus on staggering in kindergarten through 2nd grade students on an A-B schedule and really focus in on now a broader number of students with regards to IEPs. And so step 2.2 would be all inclusive of the previous step, but would include then grades 3 through 6 on an A-B schedule. Step 3 would be inclusive of the first 2 steps and would focus on 7-9 in an A-B schedule. And stage 2.4 would be all students return to a A-B schedule, K through 12. And then finally, the last stage is really stage 3, which would be what we all had hoped for, was a traditional learning schedule, which would be 5 days a week within our schools. And as you can see on this page, I went through very, very quickly, and I apologize for that, but there's a more detailed descriptor of each of those stages below that, this particular dial. So that explains one side of our plan. The other side of our plan is really around the health of the community. And we're gonna put this link, or we'll make this link available to you in our chat or in the Q&A. But this is really what's gonna drive a lot of the decisions that we make with regards to dialing that dial up or back based on the health of our community. And so this is off of the Department of Health website. And, when I reach this portion of the page, you'll see that it's COVID-19 risk assessment dashboard offered right through the Washington State Health Department. But if I come down here, I can drill down and look at rate per 100,000, which is a key driving force behind, the assessment on when it's safe to reopen schools. And so if I click on that, you can see that it will populate all the counties in the state of Washington. And then you can see this reader on the side here, or the scale on the side where it outlines where counties currently lie. You can also drill down a little further and, pick our county and see that, currently, as of now, this data is always a few days, slow with regards. It's not same day data. As you can see, this accounts for the rate per 100,000 between August 1st and August 14th. And the rate per 100,000 in that 2-week window currently sets at 96 per 100,000. Are we meeting the goal of less than 25 cases per 100,000? The answer is no. Here's our population, and here's our confirmed cases. And so this really is a critical part of the considerations that not only the school district will view, but also the health department, our local health official, will view to assess whether or not it's safe to reopen schools. And so really encourage the community to know this resource and be capable of accessing it on your own to see kind of how we gauge our decisions at the local level with our county health official. And to take that just a step further, this is the Department of Health decision-making tree as it relates to reopening schools. And so you can see here to the left, when a county falls at a high level, and they define high level as 75 cases or greater per 100,000 over the last 14 days, there are some other considerations: increased trends in hospitalizations, positivity rate over 5%, and so forth. But, one of the key factors is that cases per 100,000. And then here is the recommendation from the State Department of Health. And then how does that relate to extracurricular activities? And so you can see where we're at now with a high rating of cases in our county. The Department of Health, and this is greater than just the Clallam County health officer, this is the State Department of Health, strongly encourages distance learning. And so this is the reason why the Port Angeles School District and many schools across Clallam County have determined that Distance Learning 2.0 is a good starting point for this school year. Then you can see the next rating is the moderate, and we were in the moderate phase much of the summer. Would rate between 25 and 70 cases per 100,000. And then you can see the recommendation is distance learning as described above. In addition, considering expanding to in-person learning to elementary school or to elementary students. It's exactly what our plan follows. And so I think a really strong component of our plan is we've aligned our plan and decision making directly to the data and our state and local health departments. And then finally, when you look at the low ratings here, which is less than 25 cases, you can see what the recommendation for the Department of Health and our local county official would be. So I want to reference the recommendation. I know there's a lot of questions out there and concerns around, well, it's only a recommendation. Well, you know, for those of you in the room that own a business or have owned a business in the past, you'll you know, understand what I'm about to say. And for those that own a home or, you know, you've just worked in the field for quite some time, we engaged with our insurance carrier. And as simple as it gets, if we were to, as a district, move outside the recommendations of the Department of Health and our local county official, our risk pool or our insurance carrier simply would not cover the liability of the district as it relates to making that decision. So in very, very simple terms, you know, we simply can't afford to operate school where we bring hundreds of employees and thousands of students on our campus and not have insurance coverage. And so, you know, we have a moral and financial obligation to, you know, look at the Department of Health, look at our local health official, and follow guidance that may not come in the form of a required recommendation, or excuse me, a mandate, but as a recommendation to look at that data and simply look to follow the recommendations of our local health official and health department. And so, you know, there's a lot of information here. I encourage you to take a look at it. But we can also provide a link to that as well. So I want to speak a little bit, you know, and again, I want to keep my time minimal here so I can answer your very, very important questions. But I know there's a lot of concern and confusion in our community around what school will look like the 2021 school year. I can assure the community in this room today that the time and the effort and the dedication of our school community to, you know, make this work and make it work very well, you know, has occurred this summer. We have, you know, many tens, probably more than 100 staff, including teachers and classified staff and administrators that have been working all summer long to make sure that when we launch this fall, it looks and feels very different from what we experienced in the spring. There's a significant difference between our spring experience and our fall experience. In the spring, you know, we knew approximately 48 hours before we were going to be closed that we would close. And so, you know, we had no contingency plan for that. Now, through our spring learnings and feedback from community and community forums, we've been able to create a plan moving forward that accounts for hopefully many of your concerns, but it also provides for a very clear and concise delivery model that is well communicated to staff, that is well communicated to students, and is well communicated to the community. So, you know, I understand the concern in our community, but I want to preface our conversations today with we have put the time in to really make this learning experience look and feel very much different from what you experienced in the spring. And don't get me wrong, I think we did some things in the spring fairly well, given the circumstance and it being an emergency situation. But this fall and moving into this school year will definitely have a different feel and look to it. And, you know, to include, you know, accountability for students, for staff, for our system, to include social emotional learning, to include core academics, you know, to include clubs and other activities, and band and choir and orchestra. So we've been working really hard, and come this September when we start school, I am fairly certain that each of you will see a significant difference as we roll out our schedules and soon to be class rosters and also attendance. So with that being said, again, my goal was 15 minutes for my time. Now I'm going to open the mic to specific questions that I may answer at this time. I want to caution the community, if it's very detailed, specific questions to your particular child, I may take your name and number and have the appropriate staff reach out to you so that you get the very specific and correct data coming back to you. So with that being said, Jen, first up.
Yes, thank you. So Emily April, your mic will now be unmuted. And it appears that Emily does not have a microphone, so I will read her question for you. Will we or can we possibly utilize pool testing, that being testing a cohort for COVID-19, as a tool to additionally try to sample the school classrooms and try to keep classrooms safe as we reopen schools?
Yeah, there's daily developments with regards to testing, not just in our community, but across the nation. This summer, we have engaged with some of our local health officials and health clinics, and we are working on some components to some quick testing that might be available to us. Unfortunately, that technology is not quite there just yet, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we will be looking at something to that nature near the end of September. As it relates to pool testing, as the leader of the organization, we're really going to lean on the Department of Health and our health official. And if we have the capacity to do, testing in sample sizes and it's recommended by our local health official, we will listen to all options. The commitment that I have and the board has and every person that works in this district has is our number one priority is to keep, our students and our staff safe. And so, if there are additional testing opportunities today or in the very near future that we can potentially utilize, the sky's the limit. We will be open and a collaborative part of each one of those conversations.
Next is Christine, and her last name begins with A. Your mic is now enabled.
Hi, Dr. Brewer. My question is about the daycare that was just posted earlier on the Port Angeles School District page. So that's a for-profit business, and it's pretty expensive if you don't qualify for any form of financial aid. And with 5 kids, how that's going to work when attendance is required and, working full-time, not being able to do the daycare, but the daycares are at the school. So, it's kind of confusing because even the recommendation is that even in the first phase, it's recommended that, we could have school for the high risk and special needs. That recommendation isn't really being, followed, doing the 100% online, but instead there's going to be daycare providers using the schools. I don't know if they're going to be, doing the online learning at the schools during the daycare hours, and then the cost that's associated with this doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense for our community.
Yeah, thank you, Christine, for the question. Yeah, and that's a keen eye, and I appreciate that observation. The facts of the matter are, and I had this conversation with Dr. Unthink on Tuesday night. We were a part of a city council meeting together, and you know, one of the only components of a community that's held to the standard of high, medium, and low risk are school systems. And so K-12 school systems, simply put, are held to a different standard than restaurants and bars and daycare providers, et cetera. So, you know, there's just a different set of rules for schools. The second part of your question is we have collaborated with you know, the Y and CNC. We went through an RFP process. They have you know, in my assessment, and this doesn't help, you know, that independent, you know, question that you asked, but they have fair competitive rates because we're partnering with that, and we have lessened the cost for those businesses to operate within our schools, nearly no cost. And so that can be pushed on to the consumer in hopes to keep the rates lower. So I understand having, you know, 5 children, that's very difficult, and I empathize with that. And the final question around the online learning platform, we are working right now with members of our organization to be able to push services out, meaning, you know, if we have a child care provider, or we spoke to Serenity House earlier in the week, we spoke to the tribe, but if we can work to push, you know, staff out, I'm talking support staff, classified staff out into the community to help with the online learning. And I want to preface that that's really not, you know, in a home, but if there's a community center or there's a common space where our staff can help, you know, we're trying to work through the provisions to make that happen. So we do understand that, you know, this is very difficult, you know, on many of our community members, and we want to provide supports where we can push those supports out. And then finally, around our plan, I believe our plan does, you know, follow the guidance from the state health department. If you look at, you know, their specific guidance around high-level cases in a community, it reads, and I'm looking at that decision tree again, strongly recommended distance learning with the option for limited in-person learning for small groups or cohorts of students for the highest need students, such as students with disabilities, students living in homeless environments that are furthest away from educational justice, and younger students. And so we're really trying to follow that guidance. And as we progress and move into this distance learning 2.0, we will continue to be creative and innovative to try to you know, push out and bring in services the best we can to lessen the impact of a distance learning 2.0. But again, I want to loop back around. This will be a very different experience than what our community you know, saw in the spring. And I think we did some things really well, but we have improved our delivery model. And my hope, Christina, is that helps your family situation.
And the YMCA just wanted to add that they are working on getting scholarships available, just so people out there have that information. Next will be Steve Hawley. I am enabling your mic now.
Okay, thank you. I'm the parent of an incoming kindergartner. I've got a lot of questions. I don't expect you to necessarily answer all of them. You know, needless to say, the last several months without childcare have been really hard for us. We've also got a 1-year-old at home. And basically, you know, my wife and I have a lot of questions about how kindergarten is even supposed to function, because so many of the skills you're supposed to learn are in-person skills. you know, social skills, physical skills. So it's, you know, we're concerned about, is our son even going to learn anything useful? How long are we expected, you know, he's a very energetic kid and he's supposed to be at this age. How long are we supposed to sit him in front of a computer all day with kids and a teacher that he's never met? How big of a burden is this going to be on us as parents, especially when we have another kid at home and have to split our attention? You know, will there be any opportunity to at least meet the teacher in person, you know, socially distanced and everything, obviously, but before the school year, so that they're not just some disembodied stranger talking to him through a computer screen? You know, we certainly hope that school is able to reopen 2 days a week for K2. But, you know, will the kids even be allowed to play together at recess? What are the rules going to be for that? So I don't expect you to answer all of those questions right now. If you could speak some to kind of the unique challenges of kindergarten, I would appreciate that. But basically, we just really want more information about how kindergarten is going to work and how that's even going to meet the needs of 5-year-olds, and, you know, whether it's even worth our time sending him to remote kindergarten, or whether we just say maybe better luck next year if we're able to make that work. So and any thoughts are appreciated.
Yeah, Steve, what elementary school would your son attend?
Franklin.
Okay. All right, thank you for the questions. And I'm gonna try to answer a few of them, but then I'm gonna have you know, one of my staff members reach out and get very specific information to you. Yeah, we most certainly, last year, what we kind of missed with regards to our distance learning 1.0 last year was the social emotional side of the work. And so, you know, that human interaction, that time to come together in either a virtual or in-person setting is so important to the development of, you know, students and children at the age of 5 and beyond, and adults, to be quite frank. So, you know, we are really working at our delivery model to be able to accommodate the social emotional needs of all of our learners. And a big part of that is, you know, September 3rd, 4th, and 8th, and this is information that will come out of our office very soon. But the 3rd, 4th, and 8th, we're going to have conferences. They're not going to be called conferences. It'll be re-engagement opportunities for each family to meet with his or her teacher, or the student to meet with his or her teacher. And we really feel like that's an important step to answer a lot of the questions, Steve, that you have posed, so that we can talk through what does a delivery model look like for a kindergartner? How many minutes are we committed to? You know, how will we meet his needs from a distance as it relates to, you know, social interactions? And so, you know, that re-engagement conference will be a critical part of the first step that we take to answer many, many of your questions. And that's not just for kindergarten students, that will be K-12. We are committed to making sure that we start our year off right and provide the necessary resources to families to be able to navigate the start of a distance learning 2.0. But if Jenny, if you could take Steve's name and number, I would like to get back to him with very specific information from the appropriate staff. The final piece is we have invested in social emotional learning curriculum because this is an important part of what we're going to do this year. You know, we know that you know, the social emotional side of the work that we do will be as important as the academics, and so we have purchased a curriculum that will be K-12 implemented, and that is a program called Character Strong, and it is specifically to address the social emotional needs of all of our learners and give you know, meaningful content as it relates to that portion of their that part of their development. But you know, for the more detailed answers, Steve, I will have a staff member from our district reach out to you and engage in a much deeper conversation with regards to very specific questions that you rightfully have questions for.
Again, a reminder that if you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please type your name into the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. And right now, there is no one else with a question or a comment. Here we go. Melissa Briggs, I will now enable your mic.
So can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
Perfect. So my question is based around the technology. So I have two kindergartners. Thank you for addressing the kindergarten question before me. But my question is about technology. How are we supposed to get that? Are we getting Chromebooks one-for-one students, or what's that look like?
Yeah. Thank you, Melissa. Good question. Yes, we've made some significant investments this summer. Our goal is to implement one-to-one technology K through 12. And so if your family, you have two children or two students in school, both of which being kindergarten, they would both be assigned a Chromebook. And that's a really important step for us. You know, last year we tried to push out Chromebooks to families, and we provided one per family. Well, it simply didn't work, especially this next year when we're on a schedule. We want students to have a device in his or her hands to be able to, if we're going to exercise distance learning 2.0, we've got to make sure students have the resources to do so. So yes, the Chromebooks will be rolling out, and students will have a one-to-one device. One of the challenges that we are facing is we ordered, we have a number of about, 3,100 Chromebooks on site today. We have about 3,500 students, and we have 900 Chromebooks still coming. There's been a little bit of a backlog of order of Chromebooks, as well as, with regards to trade agreements and so forth, there's been a delay in the delivery. So at the secondary level, we will engage. If a student has a device in grades 9 through 12, we're going to ask for a little bit of forgiveness around, we won't assign you a Chromebook on day one, but we'll ask if you've got a device. Can you use that temporarily until we get our order of 900 Chromebooks near the end of September? But starting at the elementary level and moving up through the middle school, yes, every one of those students will be assigned a device to utilize for their work. As it relates to connectivity, we know that this can be a challenge to some families as well. We're working with a number of partners to try to help offset that as well. And it's simply too soon to, divulge that information, but we are committed to providing the device and helping families overcome the Wi-Fi or the broadband issues, to make this work. So thank you for the question, Melissa.
Next is Jessica Irvine. Your mic is now enabled.
Hi, yeah, I was just wondering if you could provide an overview of the differences between Seaview Academy and the distance learning model. I think there's a lot of us right now that are considering the two and wondering about the advantages of each.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Seaview Academy is 100% online, and really, the biggest difference between our Seaview and Distance Learning 2.0 is the schedule. If you're a Seaview student, really you're working at your own pace, and you can finish coursework that's intended to be a 9-week course in 6 weeks, or you can finish it in 12 weeks. And so you're really working at your own pace. The thing to remember is, our Seaview Academy are staffed with our own teachers. Every one of the teachers that you engage in the Seaview world will be a Port Angeles School District teacher. As families have moved from the brick and mortar delivery model to Seaview, we've been transferring our own staff to meet that need. So really there's a lot of flexibility in the Seaview world, and it's not really driven by a schedule. The only thing that would be scheduled in the Seaview world would be the scheduled meeting once a week. As a part of an ALE delivery model, you have to meet with the teacher. That can come in a lot of forms. That can come in an in-person meeting, that can come by way of a Google Meet, that can come by way of a phone call, an email, but there has to be an engagement at least once a week. Now, the teacher's available more than that for questions and concerns that come up, but that's the minimum. For the Distance Learning 2.0, really it's going to follow more of a schedule. So for those families looking for consistency around a schedule where you start class at 8 in the morning and you have requirements throughout the day, I want to caution the community, though. It's not like a brick and mortar schedule where you sign on to your Chromebook and you'll be there from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock every day, staring at a screen. That's not best practice as it relates to distance learning. So there will be some and some times where we expect all students to log on, check in with their teacher, we'll take attendance, we'll do some of the social emotional work, and then the teacher will launch a video that is intended to be the instruction for the day. And so the real advantage of that is the video. If a student can't check in at that particular time, they can watch that at a later date or a later time. And so really, from my perspective, it's really about schedule. If you're looking for, ALE or CView would be 100% flexible, and distance learning 2.0 would be more schedule driven. And the experience for both, I believe will be, top-notch quality instructional practice and quality material. And we'll both have, Port Angeles teachers leading that work. So those are the key differences between the two, or the key advantages between the two. And if you have if you'd like to have a deeper conversation, I can most certainly have Cindy Crum, with the director of the ALE program, which is our CView Academy, reach out to you with more depth around how that curriculum would work.
Next is Chris Franklin. I'm now enabling your mic. Okay, Marty, his question, assuming it was a he, sorry about that, is did you say that special needs students will also be 100% online?
No, not all special needs. In the beginning, most special needs. So when we start in stage 1, those students that fall within our resource 2 classrooms and have more restrictive disabilities, the teachers will reach out and engage in an interactive process to discuss what the delivery model or the IEP plan looks like for the 2021 school year. Some of those students that can't engage from a distance will be developing plans to meet their needs, in some cases in person. For students that are considered resource 1 students that have an academic delay, many of those students' needs will be met from a distance learning model as we begin this next school year.
Thank you. Next is Mark Hanna. Your mic is now enabled. It appears Mark may not have a microphone. So the question is, how much time do the teachers spend each day online with the kids?
All right, is that referencing last school year?
It doesn't say.
Okay. Well, the teachers will have a schedule just as the students have a schedule this next school year. And teachers are contracted, or they have a contract to work 7.5 hours. Now there are some, mandatory, breaks and lunches in there, and prep time or preparation for delivery of lessons. But by and large, many of our teachers would have engagement with students, around 6 hours a day. But in this model, and there's kind of a false narrative out in our community, and it's my job to undo that. This model is not like the brick and mortar. It requires so much more time from our educators. Our educators are building, video lessons to accommodate best practice in this world. They're available for questions. They're working with their peers to come up with best practices to provide the best opportunities for students. And so I can tell each person in this room, in this community room, our teachers are investing in many cases much more than 7.5 hours a day towards the professional commitment that they have for their job. And so the value of this next year and the schedule is we'll have a very concise schedule for the teacher and also the student, and have expectations for both. And beginning last year during the closure, there was a little bit of a gray period in there where we were just trying to figure it out, and we didn't have maybe that accountability for the student. But this year that changes. All expectations and accountability of student, teacher, administration, myself, come back to the world of education, and we're holding ourselves to a very, very high standard. But our teachers in particular are working very, very hard to make sure that we align our work to best practice, and we make a high quality experience for students, that this doesn't happen by chance. They're working hard, even if you don't see them, out in a classroom teaching in front of a class. They're working hard behind the scenes to create the supports to make sure that the video options and the digital options come off well and work well for student engagement, student rigor, and also student social emotional needs.
Allison and Chris, your mic is now enabled.
Hi, Superintendent Brewer. My question is, when will families know their teacher assignment and basically their, the teacher's online program schedules? We're just trying to make childcare accommodations and set work schedules. I really appreciate the answer you gave about Seaview Academy. I feel like a lot of families are asking that question, just what the difference is between the two. So we're just kind of wondering when we will get more information.
Yeah. And thank you for that question, Allison. I appreciate it. And nice to see you again. In a typical year, we have class list out, and if we didn't have it by now, we'd be late. We have been dealing with a changing environment day to day, week to week for quite some time. The new numbers in our county have, we set a plan a week ago Thursday, and then we had to change that plan on Tuesday afternoon with regards to Dr. Unthink's recommendations. And so what I'm trying to say here, Allison, is I appreciate your patience and understanding and your grace. The information that you're looking for will start to be released from independent school or individual schools as soon as Monday of next week. And so our folks are working really hard right now on class lists, communications, and starting Monday of next week, you will get that information and that material. But again, Allison and Chris, thank you for your patience. And we're working double time to try to pull that off in this environment. Thank you.
Next is Audrey Charging Whirlwind. Your mic is now enabled. Audrey? Okay, Audrey's question. Find it, please. Is how can the availability of Wi-Fi be made available to families unable to drive to the Wi-Fi locations?
Thank you, Audrey. I appreciate that. We're working on solutions to that question right now. If a family has a Wi-Fi need during those conferences that occur on September 3rd, 4th, and 8th, it's going to be really important. One of the scripted questions that the teacher will ask would be Wi-Fi availability to a family. And so if you have a need during that re-engagement conference, please have that conversation with your child's teacher, And we're working with a number of community organizations and agencies, including the Port Angeles School District, to make commitments to try to help offset that or to try to address that need. So more information to come in the very near future on that particular challenge.
And so far, there are no other questions or comments in the queue. Oh, and we do have Christine A. again with another question. Your mic is now enabled.
Hi, Dr. Brewer. I have another question for you. In relation to CVU Academy, my understanding is that it's kind of like a branch off of Port Angeles School District. So if my eldest son has an IEP, would the IEP still be through the Port Angeles School District, or is that completely separate? Because I had to do enrollment papers for CVU and like move the students from, you know, their schools that they were already assigned to, which was kind of confusing because I thought if we went back to the brick and mortar, like they could go right back to the school, plus they had the option of sports and other things through the school. So it's kind of confusing as to what all is moving. Like, is it considered a complete separate school?
Yeah, it's its own entity, which means it is a school, a virtual school, under the jurisdiction of the Port Angeles School District. So if you enroll your child in the ALE program, absolutely, the IEP will follow that child, and we have special education teachers that will be guiding his or her independent instructional needs. And so, yes, it is a school within the Port Angeles School District, and that's the real advantage of our CVU program is, you know, the flexibility that comes by way of our online school is a family, you know, given the circumstance now, can enroll there, and if circumstances change a month from now, it's a rather easy or a seamless opportunity to move back into the brick and mortar schooling. With other online schools, it's a more complex process, and typically students may not be released from that program until usually coursework is completed and or semester. I do want to caution that if you do sign up for ALE, best practice, you know, would be to finish the class that you started, so that, you know, we don't have a lapse in skill development between what's happening in the ALE Odyssey-ware program and, you know, what would happen in the brick and mortar schools. So, but that doesn't mean you have to wait till semester. Just complete the coursework, which again, students work at their own pace, and, you know, they can complete the coursework as fast or in a lot of cases in a slower fashion, but there are deadlines when classes would need to be completed. So yeah, the real advantage is it falls under our jurisdiction, and it is a school within our school system that's just virtual in nature.
Desiree, your mic is now enabled.
Hi, I just had a question about the Chromebooks. What will the pickup look like for those, as far as like the elementary and middle school that don't have to wait? How do we go about picking those up?
Yeah, when we have the re-engagement conferences on the 3rd, 4th, and 8th, much of that work will be completed at that conference. So a big part of it is to, you know, have, just as I referenced earlier with, I believe, Steve, you know, that human interaction between the teacher and the student and the family is so important. That's priority one of the conference. But the other priorities that we have, you know, are the logistics around the device, the logistics around Wi-Fi capabilities, you know, other coursework, and more importantly, like the platform. You know, what learning platform will we be using? And if your child is in K3, we will be using a Seesaw platform. And if your child is in grades 4 through 12, we would be using Google Classroom as the platform. And so that's an opportunity to provide some professional learning for the parents as well around how does Google Classroom work, or how does Seesaw work. And so these conferences will be so very critical for, you know, helping to address all of the tech skills needed, and the tech device and the tech capacity issues to make this really work in September. So more to come at your child's conference. Again, those will be scheduled the 3rd, 4th, and 8th.
We have 10 minutes remaining, and again, nothing further in the queue, Marty. Oh, okay, so we do have one just come in. However, Amanda Sanders does not have a microphone, but her question is, will the IEP teacher cover all subjects? And let's see, and this might be something that we need to respond to Ms. Sanders directly. It seems very specific about her student, but if you wanted to cover, the IEP teacher will cover all subjects, or if different teachers will cover different parts in the IEP, if that makes sense.
Yeah, typically what you'll find, and again, let's take name and number so that I can have staff reach out, but typically a single teacher will manage the students' IEPs, IEP regardless of the number of areas that they qualify. And that would be, you know, expected both in the brick and mortar schools and also in the virtual school of Seaview Academy. Typically, you will have one teacher that manages, you know, even though you might have a number of areas that qualify.
Thank you. And Emily April has another question, but without a microphone, I believe, so I will ask it. It's about the high school class schedule, wanting to confirm there's only 4 classes taken at a time, but will they still get, sorry, the question disappeared on me here. But will they still get 7 classes in each semester? How about gaps with language arts or math? What about students that are capable of taking 7 classes at once or need that engagement? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, that's a big change. And again, remember I referenced earlier that you know, this year will look and feel a lot different. And that's one of the most significant change, or one of the more significant changes at the middle and high school. As we dipped into the virtual world and really learned more about, you know, best practice as it relates to working remote or virtually, having a child engage in 7 courses is simply for most, not all, but most students not a reasonable expectation. And so we worked really hard this summer to create a 4x4 schedule at the high school. And so we simply put, we took the 7 classes, and so your child will still have those 7 courses, but the first half of the semester we will have a distance learning period to kind of, you know, work on the social emotional side. It's kind of, let's call it a 0 hour, you know, the first half of the semester, where they'll work on the social emotional side of progressing through our system, as well as distance learning questions around tech and so forth. So that will be kind of the 0 hour, and then the student will take periods 1 through 3 for their first half of the semester. The second half of the semester, they'll take periods 4 through 7. And that really aligns to best practice as it relates to when you're in the ALE world working virtually in the Seaview Academy. Students typically take through 2 to 3 courses, and simply trying to do more than that is too much. You know, with regards to screen time and expectations of courses. I'm going to make an educated guess around, you know, students may be capable of taking more courses. If you think about it, if a student's taking a first period math class, that teacher has to, you know, complete a semester's worth of work in 9 weeks. And so that course is going to create more of a commitment to meet the skills that are outlined and developed within that course. So it will look different and feel different from the student perspective around the rigor and challenge of that schedule. The middle school will be a 3x3 model, meaning the first 3 periods the first part of the semester, and the second 3 periods the second part of the semester. Again, a significant change, and we feel that this will make it much more reasonable as far as an expectation for just the workload that many of our high school and secondary students were facing last year with just too many courses.
And we have 5 minutes remaining, and currently no questions or comments in the queue.
So I'll take this opportunity. Again, I referenced this when we came online today, but I really hope that folks continue to come back on a weekly basis. I hope this was beneficial for you. I really want to have an open line of communication. I really do understand the frustration, the concern, the anxiety. Believe me, I'm dealing with those same emotions. And, we are totally committed to you and to your children in the delivery of this model, and want to do our very best to make it work for each family member across our district. And so my hope is you'll continue to come back on a weekly basis and bring very detailed and specific questions, so we can just continue to have an open and honest conversation. And there will be times where I'm just going to have to say I simply don't have the answer, but that's a great question. We're in uncharted waters. We plan for a lot, but most certainly there will be some things that pop up that we have to address in a quick fashion. I also plan on bringing partners or guest speakers with me each week so that we can have a focus of the week. We'll have Michelle Olson, which is the assistant soup and in charge of teaching and learning. We'll have Pam Sanford, which is the director of special ed. We'll bring in Dwayne Johnson, which is our athletic director for the school system. Those are just a few to start with, but I hope that these are really beneficial to you, and I know they'll be really beneficial for me, because I need to understand the challenges that families are faced so that we can work on the other end or this end to make sure we're doing our due diligence to address all of those concerns. So anything else come in during that time, Jen?
Yes. One more would be Christy Tucker, enabling your mic now. Can you hear us, Christy? All right, so Christy's question is just wondering if things have been discussed around what can be done with the PE credit issues at the high school level, since the sports substitute won't be an option.
Yes, thank you for that question. That is something that I'm working on right now. And I will have more information at this meeting next week. But a very valid question, and we will give a definitive answer as soon as next Friday.
And there's nothing else in the queue other than I want to say thank you to the many people who have said thank you in the Q&A. They've been very kind.
And please share your experience with your peers, your friends, your neighbors. Again, I really want this to be an open, collaborative, productive conversation weekly moving forward. Appreciate your time today, and I enjoyed my lunch session with you today, and look forward to next week. And there are a few of you that we'll reach out to and give you specific answers. Again, thank you very much, and have a nice weekend.